paid to guard her, but I set her free. So I did the one thing they didn't pay me for. I set her free.
They said she was a beast, a creature fed behind iron bars chained deep in the mountains where the Khan's guards feared to look. They paid me in silver to feed her, to keep her quiet, to never ask what she was. But when I saw her eyes, green, human, and aching with a kind of sorrow no monster could fake, I knew I wasn't her guard. I was her jailer, and I had one choice left to make: obey the Khan or set her free. If that opening pulled you in, hit like to keep this story alive. It really helps us out. Subscribe for more cinematic, human versus the unknown sci-fi tales like this one, and ring the bell so you never miss when the next chapter drops. Oh, and share this with someone who loves deep emotional sci-fi, because this one, it's not just about monsters, it's about humanity. It started with heat, not sunlight, a heavier heat, the kind that clings to the skin and smells of dust and iron. By mid-morning, the plaza had filled with whispers. Hooves struck the cobblestones, echoing off stone walls as a group of riders tore through the market. At their head rode a man with one eye sewn shut. The Khan's seal gleamed on the banner behind him, black on red. Even before he spoke, everyone knew what this meant. Imperial business. The kind that could feed a family, or end one. He raised a black leather bag. 5 taels of silver a month, he shouted. The Khan seeks a caretaker in the northern mountains. The words hung in the air like smoke. 5 taels, enough to keep a whole village alive through winter. But the crowd stayed still. No one asked questions, because everyone knew what kind of jobs the Khan paid for in advance. Within seconds, the plaza emptied. Doors slammed, stalls folded shut. Only one man remained, Marco, 20-something, thin from too many skipped meals, a face that still carried the stubborn hope of someone who hasn't learned to give up. He stepped forward. I'll take it. The one-eyed emissary studied him. His men shifted, horses snorting. Why don't you run like the rest? Because I haven't had work in 14 months, Marco said. My mother hasn't stood since the rains. 5 taels is 5 taels. The emissary nodded slowly, the way killers nod at something they understand. He tossed Marco the heavy bag. Inside, coins clinked like tiny promises. Then came a sealed parchment. Report to the Blackstone post within 5 days. They'll tell you the rest. Don't be late. Marco hesitated. What am I watching? The emissary's scar twisted as he smiled. Something that eats fresh meat every 3 days. And just like that, they were gone. Dust, hoofbeats, silence. When Marco pushed open the door of his home, the light was fading. His mother lay on a thin mat, her back to him. She didn't turn when he spoke. I got a job, Mother. For the Khan. At the mention of silver, she tried to sit, coughed until her whole frame shook. Where? The northern mountains, feeding a possession. Her eyes sharpened. When they pay in advance, it's because they don't expect you to come back. That's the law of cursed jobs. He placed 3 coins beside her pillow. We need this. I'll tell the neighbor to bring you soup. She caught his wrist. Cold fingers. Desperate strength. I dreamed of crows at the door last night. Don't go. He kissed her forehead. Stone cold. I'll come back. Her voice followed him to the door. Stubborn fools like you always come back. Maybe it was a blessing. Maybe a curse. The road north was dust and distance. 2 days by cart, 1 by river barge, another by ox cart that climbed higher than clouds. The air thinned, cold and sharp. Vegetation died. Even the birds stopped singing. At last, the Blackstone guard post came into view, a single tower stabbed into the mountainside like a thorn. 2 guards stood at the gate. When he showed the sealed parchment, they exchanged a look. You're the new caretaker. It wasn't a question. Yes. Last one lasted 3 weeks, the older guard said. What happened to him? He left. They found him barefoot in the valley, frozen solid. Marco's stomach tightened. The younger guard unrolled a crude map. Up this path. 2 hours on foot. You'll see the camp, the prisons carved into the rock. Don't stray from the trail. The spears parted. The path yawned open, a gray wound cutting through
Time
fog.
felt endless. Fog pressed close, cold and wet. To his right, a cliff wall slick with ice. To his left, nothing but open air. Every step was a gamble. Halfway up, he found a bridge, rotting planks suspended by ropes that looked older than the Empire itself. He tested a board. It groaned. Another step, another groan, then a snap. His leg plunged through. Instinct screamed louder than fear. He hauled himself forward, with splintering beneath his palms. When he finally reached the other side, he lay there gasping, cheek pressed against frozen stone, laughing at how close death had come. Hours later, the camp appeared, a sagging tent, a dying fire, and beside an old man wrapped in animal skins, eyes empty, beard matted gray. "You're the relief?" the old man rasped. "Marco." The man stared for a long beat, then nodded toward a wooden bucket of dried fish. "Give it 1 a day. Morning. Leave it in front of the bars. Don't go closer." "What am I guarding?" "You don't want to know." He turned, revealing 4 deep scars along his arm, claw marks healed years ago. "What happens if I look inside?" Marco asked. The old man's voice fell to a whisper. "Don't look her in the eyes. They're beautiful, and that's how she gets you." Before Marco could speak, the man was already walking down the trail, fast, almost running. Then silence. Marco stood alone. The wind died. From the stone cell carved into the cliff came a faint sound. Chains dragging, metal against rock, a slow, rhythmic scrape. He swallowed hard. The sun was gone, the fog thicker than smoke. He threw more wood onto the fire until it roared. The warmth stung his face. He busied himself with chores, clearing rotten plates, checking the water barrel, but the thought kept returning. Something was alive in there. By dusk, he had no more excuses. He took 1 dried fish, walked to the entrance, and placed it 2 steps from the bars. He turned to leave, then froze. Something moved inside. Slow, heavy. Chains rattled closer until he felt it behind the darkness. He didn't turn, didn't breathe. Then a swift motion. The fish vanished, snatched away by unseen claws. He backed away, heart pounding, and stumbled toward the fire. That night, as flames cracked and the wind howled through the ravine, 2 green points glowed in the blackness beyond the bars. Eyes, watching, unblinking. He couldn't look away. He didn't know it yet, but that was the first time he saw her, the creature they'd paid him to guard, the secret the Khan buried in stone. And as those eyes blinked once, slowly, he felt the first tug of something he couldn't explain, a pull stronger than fear. When dawn came, it was gray and silent. The fire had turned to ash, the air so cold it bit the inside of his lungs. Marco sat up, every muscle aching, and realized he hadn't dreamed. The sound he heard last night, the chains, the scraping, the eyes, had been real. He forced himself to move, grabbed another dried fish from the bucket, and walked toward the cell. The stone beneath his boots was slick with frost. 2 steps from bars, he stopped, the same way the old caretaker had warned. He placed the fish down, waited. From the darkness came a sound, faint, almost delicate, a chain shifting, a slow, dragging movement. Then, in one swift blur, the fish was gone. He exhaled the breath he'd been holding and backed away. She was awake, watching, always watching. The day stretched long. Marco busied himself gathering snow into barrel, mending torn cloth, and keeping the fire alive. But the mountain was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just wind and the occasional crack of ice. By nightfall, the cold grew sharper. He fed the fire and glanced at the bars again. And there they were, those same 2 glowing points of green. Her eyes. He stared back, frozen. The way they caught the light, not like an animal's. They were intelligent, sad, alive. Something shifted inside him. He wasn't guarding a beast. He was guarding someone. That night, sleep was impossible. The mountain silence was a kind that spoke, that whispered warnings in every gust of wind. He thought of the old man, the scars, his trembling voice. Don't look her in the eyes, because they're beautiful. He had looked, and he couldn't stop thinking about them. What was she? The next day, hunger drove him down the lower slope. The snow had softened, leaving patches of dead grass and broken rock. He followed faint tracks. Rabbit, maybe. He wasn't a hunter, but desperation sharpens anyone's instincts. Hours passed. The cold numbed his hands. Just when he was about to give up, movement flashed, a hair darting between rocks. Marco hurled a stone, missed, hurled another, hit. He rushed forward, knife ready. One quick motion, then silence. When he returned to camp, the sky had darkened. Rain turned to sleet, hissing against the fire. He skinned the hair, blood steaming in the cold. The smell of raw meat filled the air, sharp, iron primal. He cooked part for himself, part for her. When the meat was ready, he approached the bars again. The light flickered against the iron, and he realized how close he was standing. She, he whispered, testing the word. Are you hungry? From the dark came a rustle, then movement. A shape emerged from shadows. Not an animal, not a monster, something in between. Her fur was thick and mottled, dark along the spine, fading to gold across her arms and face. Muscles moved beneath the softness like liquid steel. She crouched low, cautious, eyes fixed on him. Around her neck hung gold rings and chains that glinted like captured sunlight. Her wrists, bound by iron, were bleeding slightly from the cold metal. Marco's throat tightened. She was beautiful, but not human, not entirely. He laid the meat on the ground, close but not too close. She reached for it. Her hand was shaped like his. Fingers slender, nails curved into short claws. When her skin brushed his, it was warm, soft, alive. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The fire cracked behind him. Her breath came shallow, visible in the cold air. Then she took the meat, retreated to the shadows, and began to eat. Quietly, almost gracefully. Marco stepped back and closed the gate. That night, he didn't sit by the fire. He sat closer to the bars, a safe distance away, watching the faint silhouette moving within. He tried to picture how long she'd been there. Months? Years? Maybe longer. The Khan's emissary had called her a possession. But possessions don't bleed. They don't wear jewelry. They don't look at you with eyes that feel like they've seen everything. Days passed. The mountain became his prison as much as hers. Each morning he'd melt snow for water, hunt what little he could find, and bring her food. And each evening she'd wait, silent, still, but closer to the bars than before. Sometimes, when he reached out to give her food, their fingers would touch again, just for a moment, a silent exchange warm for trust. It became a rhythm, a fragile peace in a frozen world. But one night, that peace shattered. He was half asleep by the fire when he heard it, a low growl, not from the cell, but from the woods. Wolves. The old man's warning echoed in his mind. Keep the fire burning. If it goes out, they come. He grabbed a burning log and stood ready. Shadows moved between the rocks. 3, maybe 4, eyes gleaming white in the dark. The wolves crept closer. The wind picked up. Snow swirled. Then the fire sputtered. The last ember hissed in the wet air. Darkness swallowed the camp. Marco froze. The sound of paws and snow surrounded him. The wolves lunged. He stumbled backward toward the cell. His hand brushed the key hanging from his belt. His mind screamed, don't. His body didn't listen. He jammed the key into the lock, twisted. The bolt screamed open. He slipped inside and slammed the gate behind him. The wolves reached the camp, tearing at what was left of the tent, snarling in frustration. Then silence. Marco turned. She was there just a few feet away, sitting perfectly still, watching him. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. The only sound was her breathing. Slow, calm. He pressed his back against the cold wall. Neither spoke. Minutes passed, maybe hours. When dawn came, she was still there, and so was he, alive, unharmed. He stepped out of the cell slowly, blinking against the light. The wolves were gone. The camp was wrecked. But he couldn't shake one thought. Why hadn't she attacked him? Any other predator would have torn him apart. But she hadn't moved, and in her silence, he saw something that chilled him more than the wind ever could: mercy. As he rebuilt the fire, Marco looked back at the cell. Her silhouette waited there, calm, patient. And for the first time, he didn't see a monster behind those bars. He saw a prisoner. And somewhere deep inside, the seed of a dangerous thought began to grow. Maybe she doesn't belong here. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm of survival. Hunt, fire, watch, feed. The mountain never changed. The air was always thin, the silence always heavy. But she began to change. Or maybe he did. Marco started talking to her, not because he expected answers, but because the silence had teeth. He'd tell her about the valley below, the markets, his mother's garden that never grew back after the rains. Sometimes he thought he saw her listening, tilting her head slightly, ears twitching beneath the dark fur, as if trying to understand his strange human sounds. He began calling her Lyra. It wasn't her name, but it felt right, soft, alive. She didn't object, and that silence felt like permission. The first time she spoke, it wasn't with words. He was setting down her meal, a small bird he'd managed to catch, roasted over the fire, when she reached through the bars slowly, carefully, and brushed his wrist. Her claw grazed the skin, not a scratch, just a touch. Deliberate. Her green eyes met his, closer now, clearer than ever. It wasn't hunger in them. It was something far more dangerous. Recognition. He froze. You understand me, don't you? He whispered. She said nothing, but a faint sound rumbled in her chest, low and almost melodic, a purr, faint as a memory. It wasn't an answer, but it was something alive. That night, the wind screamed against the cliffs, howling like the ghosts of all the men who'd come before him. Marco sat by the fire, watching the cell. She wasn't at the back anymore. She sat close to the bars, the glow of the flames painting her fur in gold. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, "why they locked you up?" Her eyes blinked slowly, like she was considering the question. Then she tilted her head, the faintest movement, as if to ask, "Why are you still here?" He laughed quietly. "Good question." Weeks turned into something that resembled trust. She no longer flinched when he approached. When snowstorms came, she would curl close to the bars, close enough that her breath fogged through the iron. Marco would sit across from her, warming his hands by the same fire that cast their shadows together. One man, one creature, both trapped by something bigger than chains. One evening, he found her staring at the stars through the bars. Her eyes shimmered like emerald glass reflecting constellations. "You miss it out there, don't you?" She didn't nod, didn't speak, but the way her shoulders rose and fell said everything. Freedom wasn't a word. It was a wound. The next morning, he woke to snow piled knee-deep outside the camp. The storm had wiped away all tracks, even his. For the first time, it felt like the world beyond the cliff no longer existed. Food was scarce. He had to ration what little he caught. But Lyra refused to eat more than her share. Sometimes, she pushed the food back toward him, sliding it across the stone with the back of her hand. That simple act, that refusal to let him starve, broke something inside him. She wasn't just surviving. She was caring. And that terrified him. Because if she cared, she wasn't a beast. And if she wasn't a beast, then he was part of prison. The night the emissaries returned, everything changed. They came without warning. 2 men on horseback, wrapped in black cloaks heavy with frost. Marco saw their torches from the trail before he heard the horses. He rushed to meet them, heart pounding. They dismounted roughly, one carrying a sack of supplies, the other a flask of wine that stank even from a distance. "Still alive, caretaker?" one sneered. "Barely." They laughed. "You'll get used to it." The last man didn't. The second emissary tossed a bag of silver onto the ground. Coins scattered like cold rain. Then he noticed her. Behind the bars, Lyra stood, tall, calm, watching. The men exchanged a look. And then the cruelty began. They threw stones, shouting slurs, laughing when she flinched. Marco stepped between them. "Enough." The taller one grinned. "Oh, the beast got you trained." He shoved Marco back. The other grabbed his collar. "Move, caretaker," he growled. "Or we'll—" He never finished. Lyra moved faster than sight. A flash of fur, a streak of gold, and a wet sound that froze the world. When Marco looked up, the man holding him was on the ground, throat torn open. Blood steamed against the snow. The second emissary went white. What in the hell? Marco didn't give him the chance to finish either. He shoved him hard, backward, toward the cliff's edge. The man slipped, arms pinwheeling. Then nothing but the sound of the wind swallowing his scream. Silence. Lyra stood behind the bars, eyes wide, breath heavy. Blood stained her claws. She looked at Marco, not like a beast, but like someone who'd seen too much death. He picked up the fallen sword, its blade cold in his hands, and approached the cell. Her gaze didn't waver. He struck the first chain. The clang echoed across the valley. Then another, and another. The last shackle snapped free. Lyra stepped forward, slow and unsure, as though she couldn't believe it was real. Her fur glistened with melting snow. Her shoulders trembled, not from fear, from freedom. Marco draped a heavy cloak over her shoulders, pulling the hood up to hide the fur. "Can you walk?" Her voice, when it came, was nothing like he expected. It was low, rich, and undeniably human. "Take me to my territory," she said, "where my kind live." He nodded, still dazed. "Then we go together." Her clawed hand slipped into his, warm and steady. They left the camp behind. The fire, the bodies, the cell carved into the mountain. And for the first time since he'd taken the cursed job, Marco felt something other than fear or hunger. He felt purpose. That night, as they descended the icy trail, the stars cut through the clouds like tiny fires. The wind carried her scent, wild, strange, alive. He looked back once, at the prison now hidden by fog. The Khan would send men. There would be consequences. But for the first time in a long, cold life, he didn't care. Because somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't the story of a man who set a creature free. It was the story of a creature who reminded a man what freedom meant. They didn't speak for hours. The mountains swallowed their footsteps as they descended into fog and moonlight. The air grew warmer, softer, alive with the scent of pine and earth instead of stone and death. Marco led the way with a trembling torch. Lyra followed behind, her movements soundless, graceful, and humanly calm. The cloak hid most of her fur, but not her presence, that quiet, magnetic weight that made the world around her feel smaller, sharper. "You're kind," he said finally, voice cracking the silence. "How far?" "Beyond the valley," she answered. "Through the forests, past the river that glows." She paused. "If we make it before the Khan's men." He knew what she meant. The emissaries' horses were fast, and dawn would reveal everything they'd left behind. 2 bodies, 1 broken bridge, 1 empty cell. The Khan didn't forgive. By midday, the fog had cleared, revealing the endless sprawl of forest below. It looked peaceful, too peaceful. Marco stopped to rest against a fallen tree. His legs trembled. He hadn't eaten since morning. Lyra crouched beside him, the hood slipping slightly. For the first time, sunlight caught her face, and he saw it clearly. Not a monster, not human, something painfully in between. Her features were fine, feline, her skin a mix of soft fur and bare patches like velvet. A scar curved along her jaw, pale against gold. He didn't realize he was staring until she looked away. "You shouldn't have done it," she said quietly. "What?" "Freed me. They will hunt you now." He smiled weakly. "I think they already were." Her eyes softened. "Why risk your life for mine?" Marco stared out toward the valley. "Because someone had to. Because if I walked away, I'd be no different from the men who chained you." Lyra studied him. The rough hands, the dirt, the exhaustion, the strange fire still in his eyes. "Humans," she whispered, almost to herself, "always breaking what they're told to protect." He chuckled. "Yeah, we're good at that." That night, they camped beside a stream glowing faintly blue under the moon. He'd thought it a trick of light, but the water itself shimmered, alive with microscopic bioluminescence. Lyra knelt by the edge, dipping her fingers into the glow. The blue ripples spread outward, painting her fur in soft light. "This is my world," she said, "the one they tried to erase." Marco joined her. "They'll come here. They always do. Humans take what they fear." He looked at her then, the reflection of light in her eyes, not accusing, not cruel, just true. He wanted to tell her not all humans were like that, but the words died on his tongue. He'd seen enough to know better. The next morning, the first sign of pursuit came, distant echoes of hooves. The Khan's men. They ran, down slopes, through trees, across frozen streams. Every sound felt too loud, the crack of branches, the rasp of his breath. Lyra could have outrun him easily, but she slowed, keeping pace, as if she refused to leave him behind. By the time they reached the base of the forest, Marco's lungs burned. Ahead lay an open plain, and beyond it, mist rising like smoke from the hills. "There," she said, "my people are beyond that ridge." They broke cover and sprinted. Behind them, shouts tore through the forest, 20, maybe more. Steel clashed. Arrows hissed. One grazed a shoulder. He stumbled, clutching the wound. Lyra turned, eyes blazing. "Keep running." But he couldn't. His leg buckled. She darted back, grabbed him under the arm, half dragging, half carrying him. Strength like iron, speed like wind. Another arrow struck, missing her by inches. Then the forest ended and they were exposed. The riders burst from the trees, black armor gleaming. The lead soldier raised his bow. "Stop! In the name of the Khan." Marco's heart slammed in his chest. Lyra let him go and turned, claws unsheathed. "No," she said. "In the name of freedom." She lunged. What followed wasn't battle. It was chaos. Lyra moved like lightning, weaving through the riders, claws flashing, blood spraying across white snow. Horses reared and screamed. Men fell before they could even aim. Marco, dizzy from blood loss, stumbled behind a boulder, watching the impossible unfold. One woman, part human, part myth, tearing apart an empire's with her bare hands. And through the violence, he felt something powerful rise inside him. Not fear, not awe, pride. Humans, he thought, might be fragile, foolish things. But sometimes we do something so impossibly right, it changes the world. When it was over, the snow was red. Lyra stood trembling, claws dripping. Around her lay silence and bodies. Marco limped toward her. "You're hurt," he said. She shook her head. "No, just tired." He smiled faintly. "Welcome to being human." For the first time, she laughed, low, rough, beautiful, a sound that didn't belong in a cage. They crossed the final ridge at dusk. Below them stretched a hidden valley, golden grass, crystal rivers, shapes moving in the distance. Dozens of them, her kind. They lifted their heads as she appeared, eyes glowing in the twilight. A chorus of soft, low roars echoed across the valley. Lyra turned to Marco. You can't stay here. I know. They will hunt you forever. He nodded. Then I'll keep running. At least I'll know I ran for something that mattered. She stepped close, touched his face with clawed fingers. You gave me more than freedom, she said softly. You reminded me mercy still exists among your kind. Her breath warmed his skin. Then she stepped back, eyes shimmering with something that wasn't quite sadness. Or maybe it was too much of it. Go, she whispered, before they find you. He hesitated, the ache in his chest heavier than any wound. Will I ever see you again? Lyra smiled, a small, almost human smile. When the stars burned green again. Marco watched her disappear into the valley, the hood falling away, her silhouette blending into gold and mist. He turned and began the long walk back toward the mountains. Behind him, the forest burned. Ahead, the world waited, hostile, vast, unknowing. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid. Because somewhere out there, in a world ruled by empires and cages, a living legend was free. And maybe that was enough. Humans, fragile, reckless, stubborn. The galaxy calls us dangerous for a reason. Because we don't always obey orders. Sometimes we break the chains instead.